So, welcome to the Kickass Midlife Method podcast, and we're talking tonight about emotional eating in midlife and how to build actual control, um, because this is something that comes up quite often. Uh, so, it's always one worth digging into. So, in summary, we're going to discuss why it's not a discipline problem, why it's nothing to do with willpower, why talking about how it is to do with this repeating loop. And if you can understand the cycle that keeps pulling you back, you can hopefully start to work on stepping outside of that circle or doing that pattern interrupt. Why midlife can sometimes make emotional eating a little bit more difficult or more likely that you're going to fall into that. And then the framework that I've used, the acronym ACTUAL, to help you manage this in real life. So, in a scale of 1 to 5, I want you to put in the chat uh, where you are in terms of control around food. Sorry, I don't really like using that word control, um, but you know what I mean. So between 1 to 5. So varied, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 3, and it might obviously change according to a different week. But on the whole, it looks between 3 and 4 actually. So maybe that will change as we go through, and you think, oh, and you get a chance to reflect and think, oh, maybe not. So what is emotional eating? Really, it's that kind of fast acting regulation tool. So food, as we all know, changes your chemistry, changes your mood, which is why that kind of short-term fix of things like chocolate, sometimes salty things, crisps, they send that dopamine to the brain, that signal, that reward signal. You get a bit of a mood lift, you get a blood sugar lift, so you get an immediately energy boost. So it becomes really, it's like a short-term fix that becomes quite addictive, because you get this immediate response from it. So your brain basically learns, oh, this works. So it's not your lack of control. It's not that if you emotionally eat that it's part of your genetics. It is just the fact that it's kind of learned behavior, and your brain's doing what it's designed to do, finding efficient solutions, and you get stuck in that trap or that circle, and that loop that you repeat over and over again. And the more you do it, the more you don't recognize you're actually doing it. So it just becomes habitual. So it follows that same predictable pattern. And understanding that pattern is really the first step to breaking it. So, a real example, probably for most of us here, is a stressful day triggers that overwhelm. So you eat sugar, you grab at that. If you're really busy as well, you don't even probably even notice that you're doing it. It makes you feel better, and therefore you just start looking into that pattern, and each repetition makes that loop a bit stronger and a bit automatic. So types of triggers. Now we're not going into, obviously there is like some deep trauma that some people have, and we're not emotional eating counselors, so I'm not going to go into like how trauma can affect emotional eating. But those general ones that people have, stress and pressure, I think is a massive one. Relief from pressure of deadlines, avoidance. I used to be a classic one for this when I was on deadlines for newspapers. Just even though it didn't make it go any faster, you'd still do that thing of like just eating. Fatigue, so energy seeking behavior, and when you just feel exhausted, you'll just be like, oh, I'm just going to have this thing. Boredom's another thing, seeking stimulation, something to do when life just feels a bit flat, or sometimes avoidance. Low mood, feeling a bit depressed, a bit down. So obviously during menopause, when sometimes your mood is affected due to drop in estrogen, then you can turn to food for comfort, let alone all the other stuff that happens in midlife, which tends to be, aging parents, all of that stuff, which can often affect our moods. And then time and environment, so can trigger automatic eating, regardless of hunger and emotion. So if you've got, if you're in an area with a cafe right next door or something like that, and it sells big cakes, or when you go to you go nowadays to any coffee shop, and what used to just be a coffee shop and maybe a couple of things by the till is now everywhere, 5 layer cakes. So, I don't know when that happened, when it went from like a nice Victoria sponge to 5 layers of sponge. So in midlife, it shows up a little bit even more. So, as I was saying, hormonal shifts, changes in estrogen, cortisol, insulin directly affect your appetite and cravings. So, it's going to make those comfort foods more compelling than ever before if you haven't got the strategies in place. Reduced muscle mass, although most of you on this call, particularly if you've been in the program for a while, are now beginning to build that muscle, which is really important because it gives you a bit more metabolic stability. So if you don't get that kind of as dramatic blood sugar swings. Um, High stress load, as I was saying before, career, there might be that identity shift with wanting to change career but not knowing what to do. I was having this conversation with someone on the podcast the other day who had a bit of a breakdown, editor of Hello magazine, and she said that was just suddenly realizing her values were out of line with her job nowadays. But what do you do if you're in midlife and you've always done this job? How do you change? That can cause stress, finances, health pressures, aging parents, all of that. And then less routine sometimes. Maybe if you're retired or shifting schedules and responsibilities. So it takes away that kind of structure. Sometimes this can happen if you've gone from working in an office, happened a lot in COVID, working in an office to working from home. At first, I think lots of people found that quite good because you could make your meals at home. But I think increasingly without that outside structure, sometimes people find it a little bit more difficult. Um, so there's sometimes explains why you've got kind of like more triggers and less of a buffer. So why willpower fails? As many of you know who've been to these calls before, heard me talking in Instagram, I don't kind of believe in willpower or motivation. But you definitely have more, you feel more energized and more consistent and more able to resist certain foods that you know are not healthy for you when you've had enough sleep, when your stress is low, and actually when you've eaten properly. So, uh, in real life, if you always keep thinking, I've just got to rely on willpower, and you get stuck in this cycle of emotional eating from stress, and you just start thinking, oh, it's just me, I'm shit, I just can't seem to have any willpower. You've got to get that out of your mind because it's not about willpower, it's about the structures, because willpower is runs out really quickly, runs out the minute you're tired, it runs out the minute you're hungry, anything like that. Um, um, so the system, actual. So I've used the acronym actual. So number one is awareness. So unless you're aware, you never got a hope in hell to change it. Now you might be aware in terms of like, oh, I'm terrible. I can't stop emotional eating. I don't mean that. A little bit more awareness than that in terms of what is it? When am I doing it? Are there patterns to when I'm doing it? What's happened? Um, what's happened to make me reach for that food that time? So a little bit of that. Then cutting the automatic response, getting that pattern interrupt in. How do you stop that pattern from repeating? So you'll need to be aware of it in order to be able to recognize when you need to interrupt it. Time structure, so building a framework that prevents those triggers from arising in the first place. Um, Understanding your physiology and why certain foods are actually going to make it harder. Alternative actions, so a little bit more of that kind of pattern interrupt. How can you replace the habit with something that actually that is stops that kind of automatic response, and that building that mindset around immediate gratification to long-term gratification, making me want to snack even though I've just had my supper. So delving into this a little bit more deeply, so awareness, before you can change anything, you need to start tracking. So if you're someone that kind of often feels like you suffer from stress eating or emotional eating, just every time you do it, use your phone, use a memo, use your notes, because most of us have got these around, and just write down when it was, where you are, what time, and what did you do, the exact behaviour. So if you keep doing that, even for a week, you'll probably notice some things that really will help you interrupt that pattern. So the interrupting the pattern bit. So try to pause for 60, 120 seconds before acting. Now, if you're tracking the awareness, that is going to help you give a pause anyway, because you're going to be writing about it, writing it down, or speaking into your phone to help you just have a bit of a pattern interrupt. Name the emotion out loud or write it down. There's a massive power in writing things down. It just takes it out of your head and helps you to look at it and take that on board a little bit more. So write the emotion out. Is it boredom? Is it, and try and be as honest and vulnerable with yourself as possible about what that emotion is. Is it boredom? Is it frustration? Is it just stress? And then that will at least help you move from the automatic to being conscious and intentional. And then time structure. So most emotional eating is actually due to lack of structure in disguise. So for instance, happens a lot for the stress eaters. You skip a meal because you are pushing through for work, blood sugar drops, cravings spike, you get really stressed and you just reach for the stuff that is not a meal. It's your chocolate, it's your flapjacks, it's your crisps, it's your beer, your glass of wine. Um, uh, and structure means your blood sugar's crashed, you're hungry, and therefore to um, um, any attempt to resist the snacky food is just you just removed it. It's impossible. Now I've made this analogy with some of you in one-to-one calls about running, my ultra running, where I can be running and it can be the worst run in the whole world. The mountain looks ominous. I'm going to fall over. It's like, that grey cloud's going to turn into a storm. There's going to be fork lightning. It's going to hit me. There's going to be snow. And then I just realised I haven't eaten. The next minute, the mountain looks beautiful, the meadow's beautiful, the daisies are, and it literally is food can affect your emotion. And therefore, that emotion can sometimes make you eat shit. So, thinking about that, it's a really simple thing. Just make sure that you are sticking to that structure of eating every 3 to 4 hours. I talk about this a lot. Structure into your diary, have a notification go off. Don't push through work if you're hitting your lunch spot and thinking, I'll just finish this work thing off. Don't eat. Plan your meals, remove that decision fatigue, and helps you. It's not going to be immediate, it will help you remove that reactive decision and protein, obviously, in every meal because it's got a higher, you digest it slower. So it helps you keep you feeling fuller for longer and will reduce cravings. And then understanding your body and the physiology of how like nutrition affects it. So as I was saying, if you're low in protein, it means that you will feel more hungry. So you're going to get more cravings. So that's why we have more protein. Eating ultra processed food, there are loads of studies and research to show that they make this in a way that makes you eat more. So those ultra processed foods, obviously some of them have got more salt. The more salt you have, the more you want salt, the more sugar, the more you want sugar. So if you're eating lots of ultra processed food, it is going to drive that desire to snack more and to have more unhealthy food. Dehydration, if you're dehydration, so many, and which is why often I'll say to all of you, have a drink of water first thing in the morning, just because it helps to set up this kind of pattern of like, oh, actually, yeah, I need to have some water, because it can be really easy to mistake dehydration for hunger, leading to often things like, oh, I really want something sweet. Oh, I really want something salty. Sometimes it's just dehydration. And then obviously the hunger hormone, if you haven't slept very well, it means your hunger hormones are working directly against you. So working on your sleep as much as you can. I know during this stage of life, sleep insomnia is prevalent amongst lots of us. But things that you can do and you do have control over are things like no phone in the bedroom, using an alarm clock, not a phone. It's a simple thing to stop you doom scrolling. Um, so that will just help you, if you fix that physiology first, when your body's properly nourished, hydrated, and rested, you're undermining the ability of that emotional eating to kind of kick in. And then alternative actions and thinking about the long-term gain rather than short-term reward. So replace a habit. So when that urge hits, um, redirect it to something else. For some of us on this call, you've just done loads of amazing neat habits. Can you start using a neat habit in place of the reaching for chocolate or wine or crisps? Walking, the water, changing the environment you're in, phoning somebody, changing the tasks that you're about to do, anything like that that just helps you disrupt the pattern. Um, Now, those 2 weeks of the NEAT that everybody's been doing has shown you all how easy it is once you set a habit to go up the stairs instead of taking a lift or elevators, to get up from your desk and do squats. It's become quite embedded, and I include myself in that. Suddenly, in 2 weeks, I'm just automatically, I walk to the stairs in my office and I don't use the elevator. So it becomes really easy to do that. So 2 weeks, if you just every time you want that snack, have some kind of pattern interrupt. And it's amazing how quickly the habits can be picked up. And then that long game mindset. You know, we've talked a lot about this, about consistency over perfection. Just because we're talking about this doesn't mean to say you're going to, come to this, listen to this, go away and be like, oh, it's all sorted. I just have to do this, this, and that. It's going to You're going to do it, you're going to have a success one time, and then you're going to have two fails and another time. Just because you have two fails and one win, it's just about consistency and stacking the wins, as I always say on these things. Consistency about thinking, oh, okay, I reached the stress stack this time, but I didn't yesterday. You think about the win and carry on doing that. And stop restarting, stop thinking, oh, I've messed it up. I'll just continue with my stress eating or whatever it is, or emotional eating this week. Then on Monday, I'm going to start. Keep with it every day. It's not going to be easy. Like I say about the snakes and ladders board, you're going to hit a snake, learn from the snake. Don't just think, I'm useless. I'm just an emotional eater. I can't seem to break out of this pattern. It's also about thinking about the chocolate is a short-term reward. It's not going to last. Whereas a long-term reward is actually feeling more empowered, more in control. And for some of you, if it's about losing body fat, obviously seeing that. Um, so the full system awareness, see it, observe the pattern, don't judge yourself. A real thing there is just don't judge yourself just because you're stressed or you feel emotional and you've had a chocolate bar. Don't beat yourself up about it. It's actually about awareness, write what the emotion is, observe the pattern, move on from it. Cut the autopilot, so interrupt that pattern. Think about your structure. I go on and on and on about this. Honestly, if you get the structure into your day, that in and of itself will help to undermine the wanting to reach for snacks. Understand what you're putting into your body and how that's affecting your decision making and affecting how your body's responding. So for me, I feel like with the ultra process, they're such buggers. You've got such a load of marketing behind it, making you eating. I rebel against it just from the sake of that. I'm like, I'm not going to be like made a fool of. For me, that's my way of like doing that. So, but understanding it, understanding that every time you have something like that, it's driving you to actually want to eat more. So try and cut that out. Alternative actions, replace it with something that works for you, and think about sustaining it, the consistency over perfection. Mm. So it's not your genes, it's not hardwired into your body. You're not, just because maybe you've been doing it for 30 years, it doesn't mean that you're stuck with it. It is just about thinking about a strategic way of overcoming it. It's not your fault. Don't blame yourself. It's just about reflection. So pause, reflect, and then think about strategies to put into place. And just keep reminding yourself of those strategies. You know, it might even be worth putting a little post-it note if it's stress around something you do at work, actually putting a little post-it note near your laptop and reminding yourself, you know, because the more you write something down, I think the more it sticks. Otherwise, it's really easy to forget. Um, yeah, so identify, what time is it? Identify one trigger. So pick the single most common trigger in your life right now and write it down. Add structure to your next meal. So if you're somebody who really suffers from this, plan what you're going to eat and when for the next 24 hours. As I say to all of you, actually, you should be trying to get that into your weekly preparation, your planning ahead. And improve one meal with protein. Really, you should be improving all your meals with protein. And just remember the momentum creates a control. So the more you stack these wins, the more momentum you'll get for everything, fitness, habits, undoing a behavior that's not serving you well. The more you can stack these habits, the more you create momentum. So identify your emotional trigger, track one eating episode this week, when, what, and why, plan your meals, add protein, prepare an alternative action, drink enough water, and commit to consistency, not perfection. So I hope that has helped. Maybe we can write in the chat if you suffer from emotional eating, which is the emotion that causes you to reach for something that's not quite healthy. Feeling low, stress, mine used to be stress, definitely. Fatigue, boredom and work stress, work, boredom, yeah, anxiety, anger, irritation. So a real mix, all of them at different times. Yeah, that's an honest answer. Great. And has anyone got anything they want to ask just in the last couple of minutes before we finish? Somebody asked earlier about NEAT. We are not doing a NEAT. We are in the middle of May. We're going to do in the middle of May, we're going to do a food-based one where the challenge will be you have to add a spice or herb to your meal and share it. So that's what we're going to do, just to get you to be thinking a little bit more around your foods, how you can add to foods to improve what you're eating and nourishment. But anyway, any questions before we go? No?
Hi, Rachel.
Dawn. Hi, Dawn.
Um, I did put the video on about my lateral
Oh,
rises.
raises. Okay, I'll have a
Yeah.
look.
Okay. Because I was just wondering whether I need to drop it down because I'm not getting the full lateral length in the arms.
Yeah, you dropped it in the app, did you?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I'll have a look. I'll have a look.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And also just to say that we don't work on Monday, so you won't see me or Ruth in the app on Bank Holiday Monday, by the way. Cool. All good?
I've got a
Yes,
very
Vicky?
quick
Yeah,
technical thing
that's okay.
about the app. I can't work out how to save a meal to my favorites. It says it's saved and I've labeled it whatever the meal is, and then when I go into favorites to look for it, there's nothing there.
I would again ask people in the app because they're in drop it in the group because I know people have had different issues with this. So ask in the group and that'll probably be quicker than me trying to
Yeah.
explain it from
Okay,
a coach
thanks.
point of
I'll
view.
do that now.
Cool. All good. Nice to see you all. Have a nice evening. See you later. Bye.